President of Snowflakes Embryo Adoption, a division of Program of Nightlight Christian Adoptions. The Snowflakes program began in 1997 and was the first in the world to offer embryo adoption. More than 1,000 children have been born through these high-tech adoptions so far at Nightlight. Kimberly is joining us from Colorado this evening. Welcome, Kimberly.
I am so glad to be here to talk to your audience today.
Well, thank you. Can you explain how embryo adoption works, Kimberly?
Sure. At the Snowflakes program, we're doing two things simultaneously. We are helping families who have embryos remaining from their in vitro fertilization treatment that they do not have a plan to use for their own family building. So they're cryopreserved and they're being stored in freezers around the country until a decision can be made as to what to do with them. And the only life-giving decision is to donate them for reproduction. We believe that we should be using the best practices of adoption in matching these families together. And so as an adoption agency, we started this program back in 1997, primarily to help families who have remaining embryos be empowered to choose the family who would receive their gift of embryos, and then the adopting family will give those embryos an opportunity to be born. And as you said, we've had over 1,000 babies born over that 25-year period, and we're really excited about that.
Well, once a match is made, how do you get the embryos to their new parents?
Well, matching is a process that we do very hands-on. We're not using a computer model to do that. I have people on my staff that are reviewing family profiles and such. And once the embryos are matched between the two families and they've mutually agreed upon the match, they sign contracts that are based in property law. And then we arrange to have the embryos shipped from the clinic where the embryos are being stored today to the clinic where the adopting family will have their frozen embryo transfer.
Wow. Well, the baby is genetically different than the adopting parents, right? But during pregnancy, does any of the adopting mom's DNA get to the baby?
No, there it doesn't have to be any matching, DNA matching or things like that, like with hearts or livers or kidneys and things like that. Any woman can carry any embryo, so we don't need to do any of those matching types of pre-matching types of things. And none of her DNA gets transferred into the baby's DNA. The baby is a completely unique individual.
How does the cost of this type of adoption compare to the more standard type?
Oh, that is a great question. Embryo adoption tends to be one of the lowest cost forms of adoption, especially if you're interested in bringing an adopted infant into your family. Domestic infant adoption in the United States is usually $30,000 to $45,000. Wow. Embryo adoption is $9,000 through the Snowflakes program. You also have to have a adoption home study completed, and you need to pay the medical fees for the frozen embryo transfer. So one round of frozen embryo transfer with your adopted set of embryos is going to be about $16,000, but you can adopt a larger set of embryos, so you don't have to keep coming back through our program to get more embryos. If I adopt a set of 6 embryos, I could have multiple frozen embryo transfers and have genetic siblings in my own family. So that's how that works.
Interesting.
Very interesting. So are there protections for the embryos in your protocols?
Yes, in our contracts, we have language that is all about protecting the lives of the embryos in their frozen state, of course, and then as they are thawing embryos, we want them to be very thoughtful about how many embryos they're thawing. Usually people only will transfer 1 to 2 embryos at a time, and so we don't want them to thaw all 6 embryos, let's say, at once, because then they're probably going to have to refreeze embryos. And we would want them to refreeze embryos, but that's not really best for the embryo to be refrozen. We've definitely had babies born from embryos that have been frozen, thawed, but that's not the best practice. We also don't allow for what's called in the medical world as selective reduction, and certainly don't allow for babies to be aborted.
Interesting. So do you think there is sufficient public awareness that this pathway to parenthood even exists?
Oh, no. And I've been working in this area for 15 years, working to raise awareness. I think that there's still a lot of work to be done. To me, the work is done when embryo adoption just becomes equal with international adoption, domestic infant adoption, foster care and adoption, when it is just that fourth opportunity and method for bringing a child into your family.
Well, Kimberly, this has been fascinating, and we think will be very eye-opening for many of our viewers. If they have questions, where can they go for more information?
Well, the easiest thing to visit is our website, which is very easy to remember. It's Snowflakes with an S.org. Our organization is called Snowflakes because just like a snowflake, each embryo is unique, it's frozen, and we believe it's a gift from God. So that's why our program is called Snowflakes.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And this has really been very, very interesting.